summer, the island of Sodor gleams in the sun and every station is filled with flowers. Percy had been working at the docks all day and was tired of the smell of fish. Phew. "Come on, Percy," said his driver. "Time to go home." "Please, sir, can I have a wash down first?" "Sorry, Percy, there isn't time. The Fat Controller is waiting for us at the sheds." "There is to be a festival of flowers," announced the Fat Controller. "This sign saying Best Rest Station will be awarded to the winner. Please help with the arrangements." The engines were excited. "My favourite station is Farquhar," said Thomas. "Mine's Maithwaite," said Toby. "Percy, what's yours?" Percy was too tired to think properly. "The docks," he murmured. "Huh," sniffed Thomas. "We can tell." Toby laughed. "The docks are full of fish, not flowers." "All right then, Alsdale End," said Percy. "That's my home," replied Toby. "That's why I like it, especially when you're there and not here saying I'm silly. Good night." Next morning, Percy was proud to be sparkling again. His train of trucks were being loaded with vegetables and flowers. "These are for Maithwaite," said his driver. "They'll display them on the platform." On the way, Percy saw Harold. "Why is Harold buzzing about?" he puffed. "I haven't time for a race today." "What's that?" said his driver. "Why, bless me, it's a ram." "Now we'll be late."
You look glum, little
I should have
Percy.
known
What's
that.
up?
Asked Gordon. "The Fat Controller told Driver that he's using Harold to show a special visit to the island instead of using any of us engines."
Despicable,
said Gordon. "Disgusting," snorted Henry. "Engines are meant to take special visitors round our island, not that whirly-bird thing," James exclaimed. Gordon was the first to see Harold. "Harold thinks he can go faster than me. I'll show him." Next, it was Henry's turn. "The Fat Controller has chosen Harold because he thinks he's more important than me. Well, he's not. Harold can't fly through tunnels." Percy stopped by a signal on his branch line near a field where sheep were grazing. Harold hovered for a while, then buzzed away. "I know what he's doing," said Percy. "He's counting sheep." And he puffed along his line, feeling much better about things. That evening, the engines
What?
talked about
Where's
the
that?
six... gasped the Fat Controller.
That's Tiger Moth.
Grumbled Harold.
It's rude and flies much too low. So I can see. Please take us up, Harold, before there's another disturbance.
A few days later, Harold arrived at their holiday home with bad news. "It's Tiger Moth," said Harold's pilot. "It's gone missing. Do you wish to join the search with us?"
I think I'd better.
"There's Tiger Moth," called the Fat Controller. Then he spoke to the pilot.
You were showing off and flying dangerously. I will speak to your controller and request that you are grounded.
"Yes, sir," replied the pilot.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I shall return to my holiday. Jolly good idea, sir.
The Fat Controller had arranged to meet up with Toby and Henrietta to take them somewhere special. Said Thomas.
Silence!
They arrived.
Percy, you've done a good day's work. Now get a good night's rest, said the Fat Controller.
"Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." Next morning, he took some trucks to the coal yards. Then he had to push empty trucks to the mine shaft. When he arrived, there was trouble. The foreman spoke to his driver. "The trucks are stuck on the mechanism. All they need is a good shove. We'll do it right away." Percy shunted back to where a large canvas barrier was used to protect his line from loose rocks. Percy charged at the line of trucks, too fast and too hard. "Oh no!" gasped Percy. The trucks broke free, but ran out of control to the mines below. On, faster, faster!" the silly trucks yelled. Then there was trouble again.
When Henry reached the coastal track, his hopes for a fast run were dashed. Fog floated.
"Get out of here fast!" His driver and fireman laughed. "Phew," sniffed Thomas. "What a pong!" He was glad when they were speeding along the beautiful coastal run. As they approached the lighthouse, they saw a man waving a red flag. "What's the matter now?" "High tides are damaging the track," reported the man. "I've marked the spot." "We'll go and inspect," said the driver. "It would be dangerous for heavy engines like Henry," agreed the driver, "but for Thomas it's safe enough." The guard left a red oil lamp by the damaged track to warn engines. "When we get to the docks, I'll tell them to close the line." Henry was waiting anxiously for Thomas's trucks. "Why, you're late, and that smell is making me ill." "I can't help it, it's the fish," replied Thomas. "And there's danger on the rails, that's why we're late." "Huh, you're the only danger on the rails, Thomas. Now stop wasting time and get your trucks hitched to my train." Thomas's driver and fireman were in the yardmaster's office when they heard Henry's whistle. There he was, steaming out of the station with his long, heavy train called the Flying Kipper. Mines with some empty trucks. What route? Meanwhile, there was trouble at the mine. The winch that hauls the trucks up and down wasn't working properly. Skarloey had reached the ravine. High above him were the mine yards. "That snow looks dangerous," said his driver. "The sound of your engine and the trucks could cause an avalanche. I'll set off an emergency cap and see what happens." Skarloey watched as his driver prepared it. Then they ran over the cap. The bang echoed round the gorge. Nothing happened. "Good," said his driver. "All's well, we'll have a cup of cocoa and then make our way." But high above them, all was not well. A long line of full trucks was about to be winched down the slope. They had just started their journey when some empty trucks became derailed. The winch groaned. "Steady, go," said the trucks, and they jerked at a coupling which broke. "We're making your wish come true, Toad." "Follow the leader," yelled the trucks. Toad was still in a state of shock, so didn't know what to think, and he couldn't ask the guard. He had jumped clear. "Faster, faster, as fast as you want," screamed the trucks. Suddenly, Toad found it all rather fun, but the fun was soon over. A crossing lay ahead and the gates were closed. Toad couldn't stop. Worse still, Toad now realised he was on the wrong track. There ahead was Gordon. The signalman changed the points just in time. On, faster," cried the trucks. Suddenly, he saw James pulling a long, slow train. "Yikes! Help! Save me!" a quick-thinking shunter did just in time. "What was that?" exclaimed James. "The signalman warned the station master at the next station. There's a runaway coming." "We'll send them into the sidings," giggled the trucks. "Help!" Percy decided just to carry on. "Go to it, Percy!" shouted the driver as they started to climb the hill. The trucks were still joking. "Too slow, more power, here all night, tomorrow too." "Be quiet," said Percy angrily. Then there was trouble. A coupling broke. "Surprise, surprise, catch us if you can." "Oh, no!" cried Percy. Percy's driver told the signalman, and the yard foreman told the Fat Controller what was happening. "They're heading for the big hill. It'll slow them down, but they may roll back again, right into the village," said the foreman.
"Then we'll just have to stop them, won't we?"
said Sir Topham Hatt firmly. The Fat Controller soon heard the sad news.
"We must cheer her up. Send Harold the helicopter to pick her up immediately."
A few minutes later, there was a surprise for Mrs. Kindly.
"All present and correct,"
called Harold.
"I'm here on a flying visit. Hurry aboard, Mrs. Kindly, and fly the sky with me. Compliments of the Fat Controller."
"Ooh, how lovely,"
"Harold's made my red paint dustier than ever,"
muttered James, but he was happy for Mrs. Kindly. Soon she was flying high in Harold. "I've never seen the island like this before. It's wonderful," she said. Meanwhile, Percy and Oliver had arrived at the docks. Cranky the Crane was unloading an old tramp steamer.
"Hey, down there, you two! I'm playing Lucky Dip in the Tramper's Hole, and all of these are for you."
"Wooden horses!" Percy exclaimed. "For the carousel ride. It's going to be a very exciting fair."
"It is indeed,"
whistled James.
"The Fat Controller has ordered me to stop pulling coal trucks and go to the station instead. Something to do with Mrs. Kindly. Goodbye."
"Well, what do you think of that?" gasped Percy. Mrs. Kindly was waiting for James with the Fat Controller.
As Gordon approached a new station,
"Now this is your very special treat. James will take you on a mystery ride,
Where
and I
can
shall
see
meet you
people
at your
and people can see
destination."
me. And he wished angrily. Gordon was happy when it was time to leave. "Now you really can enjoy your run, as long as your pipes will let you," said his driver. Come on, I can go faster than this," huffed Gordon. "Sick, me, never." But Gordon began to feel more and more feeble, and soon he came to a complete stop. "What happened?" he exclaimed. His driver and fireman inspected him. "Something's broken inside you, Gordon," said his fireman. "Now you really will have to go to the works." Gordon was still fuming when James arrived to collect his coaches. Well, so much for knowing about everything. You got too puffed up in your boiler, so it serves you right. George was now enjoying himself.
"Ripping up rails," he chortled. "What a life! What do you think of this, Thomas?"
Thomas took no notice. George felt insulted.
"You're a useless blue puffed ball,"
he shouted. But Thomas didn't hear.
"I'll show him who's boss."
At last the workmen reached the level crossing. "What shall we do here?"
"Tear it up, tarmac it,"
said George. So they did, but not properly, and George knew it too. Later, Thomas was travelling home on the same line. He was pulling trucks filled with vegetables. The signalman had forgotten to warn his driver about the crossing. "That's nice, we don't need to stop," said Thomas happily. "Yes, we do," called his driver. But it was too late to reach the station. "Please give me a lift." "I'll try, sir." But Caroline didn't like going fast. "I'm hot. My engine will overheat." And it did. "Told you so," said Caroline sadly. "Bother, bother." Then he heard a loud whistle. It was George the steamroller. George was cross when he saw Caroline. Call yourself a car, you're a disgrace to the road. Find yourself a scrapyard. Caroline spluttered in fury. George's driver was more polite. Can I be of assistance, sir? Only if you can get me to my wife's birthday party, sighed the fat controller. We can take you to Thomas, replied the driver. He's just down the line. Much obliged. And they rumbled away. What about me? Wailed Caroline. I'll send for help, called the fat controller. Stay there. That's all I can do. Toby pushed past branches and bushes till they came to another little junction. There they saw two old signs. One read to the castle and the other to the mine. We'll go to castle first. Toby stopped by an old water tower. There's the castle. Yes, replied the fat controller, and now we shall visit the mine. Once upon a time, the mine had been worked by the little engines and their lines were still in place. But now everything was very rusty and overgrown. The fat controller was most impressed, but Toby was rather scared. He was glad when it was time to go home. I think the castle and the mine will make a very fine... Help! Called Toby. We'll follow him on our line. It meets the river further down. As Toby floated helplessly on the floodwaters, they passed a sign that made them shudder. Beware the waterfall. If we go over that waterfall, we're doomed. Then they saw Harold, who swooped low and shouted urgently to them. We're going to drop a rope to you. Attach it to yourself, quickly now. And they did, to one of Toby's buffers. Just then, Percy arrived. Harold flew over to him. Catch the rope and pull Toby to safety. Toby was safe at last. When the floods were over and the dam mended, the villagers had a big party for Toby, hosted by the fat controller. You were very brave, Toby. Thanks to Harold, sir, Toby replied. I could never have been so brave. Poor Percy. Then, Cranky played a trick on Thomas. Push your trucks onto the outside line. It's easier for me to load up. So Thomas did. But Cranky left the loads beside the trucks, not in them. You must have known my arm can't reach you there, complained Cranky. This mix-up caused confusion and delay. The fat controller was most upset. Thomas and Percy, this new crane has an important job to do. I have heard that you have not been helping him today. You will go to your sheds and consider how you will improve yourselves tomorrow. Now, Thomas and Percy were upset too. That evening, a big storm raged across the island. Had an accident. Cranky and the big engines were trapped at the docks. We're sure to... If you can't push trucks properly, Henry, why not talk to a tree instead? You know how much you like the forest. As a matter of fact, Bossy Boiler, the fat controller is inspecting the island for trees that are too close to the line. He's worried they might cause trouble. Ha! Laughed James. If I came upon a tree, I'd just push it aside. Really? Replied Henry. Soon James was showing off his paintwork. Make way for an important engine! You wouldn't feel important if one of these trees crashed on you. You'd feel hurt, reproached Percy.
Rubbish! It wouldn't dare!
You should be careful, James. Trees can be just as powerful as engines, advised Terence.
Pah!
Snorted James.
Now excuse me, the Fat Controller needs me to pull the express.
And he huffed away. But James was wrong.
You must go to the yards and collect an important goods train, James. It's heavy, so be careful,
said the Fat Controller.
But, sir, I've just been repainted. Can't Thomas or Percy do it? They're dirty and like working with trucks. Really useful engines don't argue.
So James didn't. By the time he arrived at the yards, the weather had changed for the worse.
Your colour's nice, James. Pity about your face, though,
said a truck.
It wasn't long before they reached the station.
James ignored them and set off. Thomas asked. It's another fire at the workman's hut, replied Thomas's driver. We'd better see what we can do. The fire engines arrived, but they had a big problem. We are completely out of water, cried a fireman. We can't use seawater because it clogs our works. We'll just have to let that building burn. Then Thomas had an idea. Why don't you use the water in our tanks? We've just refilled them. The fireman wasted no time. You're very clever engines, chuckled their drivers. Soon the fire was out, but the hut where the workmen lived was destroyed. We'll need to find something to house the men. They can't sleep on the beach, said the foreman. What about old Slowcoach? She would be perfect for the workmen. Comfy too, added Thomas. What a good idea, Percy, said his driver. They phoned the Fat Controller, who agreed.
She'll be spick and span by the time you collect her.
And she was, and very happy too. I can't thank you enough, she said. I feel splendid. The engines buffered up to her, and she set off happily for her new home. Everyone agreed there was nothing old or slow about Coach, and she will always be really useful indeed.